So right here on my screen, I have a rectangular prism. And we worked with rectangular prisms a while ago when we were doing our study on volume. And today what we're going to do is we're going to make a little return to our study of volume and add in a word problems component to it. As you can see, there's one kind of peeking on the screen right now. So first, to review volume, let's review that volume is found by multiplying my length times my width times my height. Now in this prism here, I have 14 as my length, my width is 8, and my height is 10. So I'm going to get my volume here by multiplying 14 times 8 times 10. I'm going to multiply by that 10 last because I'm going to use one of my multiplication strategies to help me out. So if I multiply 14 times 8, I get 32 and 11, so I have 112, and then 112 times 10, we're just adding that 0 on, so it's 1,120, and that's cubic centimeters. And remember that we have 1 cubic centimeter is equal to 1 milliliter. So if I have 1,120 cubic centimeters, I have 1,120 milliliters. And we know that there's 1 liter equals 1,000 milliliters. So I could say that this is 1 liter, 120 milliliters. Now I'm going to keep this answer in mind as well. And I'm going to take a look at the next question. And the next question says, suppose the tank above that measured 14 by 8 by 10 is only halfway full. What is the volume of liquid in the tank? Well, I could do a couple different things here. One is I could take my answer that I got in the first part, the 1,120, and if I only have half of that liquid, because this is the full volume of this container, if I only have half of that, I'm going to divide it by 2, correct? So let's do that. And we're going to do 2 strategies here. So I'm going to take 1,120 and I'm going to divide it by 2. And I'm going to see that I have 560 milliliters in the tank. Now another strategy here is to take half of one of my dimensions. And I'm going to say, well, if I'm taking half, I'm dividing by 2. So I'm going to ask myself, can I divide one of these dimensions by 2? And conveniently, they're all even dimensions. But I only have to divide one of them by 2. So let's take this one, for example. And let's say I'm going to keep my 14 by 8. And now I'm going to multiply not by 10 as my height, but my height would be half of 10, or 5. So I'll multiply by 5. And now I'm going to do 14 times 8 equals 112 again. I'm copying that work from right there. And then 112 times 5 is 560 milliliters. The exact same answer as taking half of the volume of the full tank if I take half of one dimension. Now, what if I were to do, for example, keep my volume as a full volume? And here I'm going to just do a quick erase. What if I keep 10 centimeters as my full volume, and I keep 8 centimeters as my full width, but let's say I take half of my length, and I go with 7 over here, and I do 8 times 7 times 10. Well, if I work that down here, 8 times 7 times 10, 8 times 7 is 56, times 10 is 560 milliliters. So if I'm going to take half of one of my dimensions, I have to be sure that I'm only taking half of one and not all 3 dimensions, which is a very, very common mistake to make. Finally, we'll take a look at this problem over here. Now, this tank is filled up to 6 centimeters high, and we want to know how much more liquid is needed? So the total tank is 10 centimeters high. It's 10 centimeters wide and 16 centimeters long. So how much more liquid is needed? There's two strategies that I could use to get my answer here. One of them is to find the volume of the entire tank, which would be 16 times 10, which is 160, times 10 is 1,600. So my full volume is 1,600. And then I have to find the volume of my water over here, which would be 16 times 6 times 10. Okay? And then I would need to figure out the difference and figure out what's missing here. That's 2 steps of work, and I could absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I could also do is figure out that this is 4 centimeters high and figure out the volume of the empty space, because I need to know how much more liquid is needed to fill the tank. So if the tank is 10 centimeters high, it's got 6 centimeters of water in it, it needs 4 more centimeters. So now I'm going to use 4 as my height. My width is 10 and my length is 16. So now I can run through this multiplication down here. And I'm going to do 16 times 4 is 64, and then multiply that by 10 and get 640 milliliters. I can't have any liters here because 640 is less than 1,000. I need 1,000 milliliters to make a complete liter. Today what you're going to do is do a couple practice problems on your own, practicing finding volume in some weird situations like we had here on these sample problems. If you have any questions, please be sure to reach out.